New tonight on KGW News, a driver having a heart attack careens off the road.
People were honking and he wasn't responding.
How a doctor happened to be in just the right place to save him. Plus, Oregon declares a state of emergency over a leaking fuel pipeline. Why experts say there's no need to panic.
We are going to have plenty of product for Thanksgiving.
Then, federal agents defend their arrest of a McMinnville teenager while his classmates walk out in protest.
I should not be picking up students at all.
And in Milwaukee, a church is overwhelmed by need and generosity. How they're helping feed hundreds of people.
Nobody should be hungry, especially in this nation.
But first to breaking news on what some might call a win for the state of Oregon and the community of Newport. Tonight, a judge ruling the federal government must immediately return a Coast Guard rescue helicopter from North Bend to Newport, at least for now. You may remember the state and Lincoln County sued the Trump administration to get the helicopter back, one that had been at the Newport airport since 1987 and was moved some 70 miles down the coast in October. Local leaders argue it was done without consideration of current search and rescue needs and without a chance for any public comment.
The season is opening up shortly, and that's one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. And they're going to be, 35 to 45 minutes short of pickup time if they go in, because they got to come up from, North Bend or from Astoria.
The ruling is just temporary while the court waits to hear arguments for a preliminary injunction. In a statement before the ruling, Homeland Security had said these efforts to, quote, micromanage Coast Guard operations are completely intrusive and obstruct the work of the service's men and women, end quote. We, of course, will keep you updated here. Developing tonight, Oregon's governor has declared a state of emergency and during one of the busiest travel weeks of the year, and all because of a pipeline shutdown north of Seattle, one that supplies more than 90% of the state's total fuel when it comes to planes, cars, trucks, and trains. Alma McCarty's in the newsroom. Alma, unlike Seattle's airport, which is now having some planes fly in with enough fuel to get out, it sounds like Portland is, broadly speaking, in much better shape. What do we know?
Yeah, David, PDX says unlike SeaTac, they can bring fuel in on barges, so flights have not been impacted here. And as far as gas prices go, drivers so far are seeing a very slight bump of about 3 cents, but it's still unclear how long this shutdown could stretch on.
Response crews are working 24/7 to try to figure out where the leak is. They have dug up about 200 feet of pipeline to try to do this.
But after several days of work near Everett, Washington, the 400-mile Olympic pipeline remains shut down as of Monday night. Here's Marie Dodds with AAA.
90% of refined products come to Oregon through the Olympic pipeline. So clearly when the pipeline is down, we've got to get that product some other way.
That's why Governor Tina Kotek declared a state of emergency Monday afternoon to ensure a continued adequate supply of fuel to the state by barge and by truck. Although, for the time being, Oregon isn't experiencing supply constraints. At the pump, drivers may not have even noticed a slight uptick in cost.
So far, the impacts on pricing have been minimal. The Oregon average has gone up about 3.5 cents since the outage occurred.
Compare that, Dodd says, to just a couple months back when gas prices shot up 32 cents due to a prior Olympic pipeline disruption. But she says other factors were also at play.
We had a lot of refinery maintenance going on. We were just ahead of the switchover from summer blend fuel to winter blend fuel, and then we had the pipeline outage.
Should the disruption stretch on or other issues arise, then AAA reports prices could spike. But right now, Dodd says, don't panic.
But if you've got, 7/8 of a tank, you don't need to rush to your neighborhood gas station and fill up because we are not going to run out of product.
And that includes jet fuel. While airlines out of SeaTac have been warning passengers about schedule changes in the week ahead, the Port of Portland tells us flights out of PDX aren't currently impacted by the disruption, and that airlines can barge in jet fuel for aircraft operating here.
And 1 week ago, Oregon's average gas price was $3.78. Right now, it's a little more than $3.81 per gallon. No word yet on a timeline for restoring service to that pipeline. David?
And that timeline, of course, the big wild card. Thank you, Alma. As you heard, right now we are not expecting any fuel-related disruptions at PDX, and that's what we found earlier today. Even better, passengers we spoke with reported no significant hassles as the busiest travel days of the season get underway. More than 367,000 travelers are set to pass through PDX from Tuesday through next Monday. That's a slight increase from last year's Thanksgiving holiday.
A little bit slow leaving, but smooth flight after that. And the security wasn't bad. You know, long line, but they're fast there.
Fast, smooth, all good things we like to hear. If you are driving, by the way, to your holiday destination, you'll be joined by 1 million others in Oregon who are expected to hit the roads. All right, let's talk about the weather now, because let's face it, it will impact your holiday and your journey getting there or coming home in some way, shape, or form. Chief Meteorologist tracking our conditions, Matt, and possible delays across the country. What are you seeing?
Yeah, it's going to impact people in certain parts of the country way more than others, and we're one of the ones that will be impacted the least, which is great here in the Northwest. Right now, no delays at any of the major airports. Of course, it's very early in the morning back east, so we wouldn't expect that, but that's likely going to change in the days ahead. We've got weak weather system coming into the Northwest. This one up in the upper Midwest may cause some problems in Minneapolis on Tuesday. Wednesday's the big travel day, and not bad. I think we'll be in pretty good shape around the country. Then this system comes out of Canada, produce some snow in Denver and maybe Salt Lake on Saturday. And then it moves south into the southern plains, and that's when it gears up and becomes a big weather maker. Rain, thunderstorms, snow, and wind on the north side of it for Sunday. So anybody back east trying to get back to the west and back home on Sunday may experience delays because of that. In the meantime, we've got fog forming in the valleys. You can see it in downtown right now, 45 degrees here. Visibility has been impacted. It's down to a mile in Scappoose, 3/4 of a mile in Aurora. So more on the fog and the forecast for the rest of the week. And we'll talk about mountain snow. There is some of the forecast, David, in a bit.
All right. Looking forward to that. Thank you, Matt. To get you caught up on tonight's other headlines now, Portland Trailblazers coach Chauncey Billups pleaded not guilty today to charges connected to an alleged illegal gambling scheme. Billups appeared in federal court in Brooklyn without making any comment. Prosecutors say members of the mafia used Billups' celebrity status to draw people in to rigged poker games. He is one of 31 defendants charged across 2 federal investigations. Billups, who remains on leave from the Blazers, has his next hearing scheduled for March. In Oregon City, police arrested a 13-year-old accused of making threats at a charter school. Authorities say the threats were found fried in a couple of the bathrooms at the Clackamas Academy of Industrial Sciences. Classes were canceled today as police identified the student they believe is responsible and took them into custody. And in Cowlitz County, fire crews who had responded to a big fire at the Longview Country Club this morning also witnessed an explosion. The good news here, no one was hurt. Crews say they could hear the sound of propane venting after the building collapsed shortly before the explosion. The building that caught fire was used to store golf carts. The cause is now under investigation. In an update tonight, federal agents now say they detained a McMinnville High School student for obstructing officers. On Friday, Border Patrol agents say the 17-year-old was driving a truck and, along with another vehicle, barricaded them in, which led them to arrest both drivers. The teenager is a U.S. citizen, and his arrest sparked protests this weekend and a walkout at the high school today. According to the McMinnville School District, that student was at lunch off campus at the time he was arrested. The teen was released Friday night.
It's been kind of hard to just go out and just enjoy our lives without having to worry about being just kidnapped.
And my best friend herself, she texted me earlier saying how she was scared herself of just leaving her house. It's affecting their learning because they don't know if they're going to come home to an empty house or not.
So far, the 17-year-old has not been charged. GHS says this is not an isolated incident. It's part of a dangerous trend of people using their vehicles, they say, to obstruct officers at work. Well, meanwhile, today, ICE also announced the arrest of a woman accused of trying to interfere in an arrest in Tigard. This 37-year-old there is accused of pushing an officer on Sunday, hitting his vehicle with her hands, and eventually slamming the car door, hitting the officer's arm. New tonight, a Clackamas County church is once again offering a Thanksgiving food giveaway, though after the first day, they realized the need this year was much greater than they first thought. Catherine Hook shows us how people have stepped up to help.
After the church's call for help, community members donated more than $9,000 in less than a day. The pastor here says he is thankful, but given the need they're seeing, believes that might be enough to cover it. The table is set for giving.
Would you like ham or turkey?
And in Milwaukee, the need is great.
Turkey? How many would you like?
At the Clackamas United Church of Christ, the Thanksgiving food giveaway wrapped day 2 of 3 on Monday, offering turkeys, hams, and all the trimmings to anyone who needs food.
Someone asked if they needed to bring a piece of mail to prove their need, and I said, I don't think Jesus ever asked for ID or proof of need. If people are hungry, they just come and get fed.
Volunteer Raylene Hungate says the church served 226 meals on Sunday and filled the sanctuary twice. A steady line of cars waiting for their turn. Pastor Adam Erickson says despite their best efforts to be prepared, they weren't going to have enough food for everyone.
We were not on the target, no. We had to make another run to get more food.
Double the amount of food they served on their first day last year. Erickson says for those here, losing SNAP benefits is still taking a toll, while the economy in general accounts for a big part of the need.
We are hearing thank you so much. This is going to help us get through the holidays. We've been struggling to find food, to get food, and this is going to be a big help for us.
And then there were those who helped the church help those in need. Erickson says when they realized how much more food they needed to buy, he posted a request for help on Facebook. In less than a day, community members gave more than $9,000 in donations.
People show up and they help, and it's a really big deal.
For a really big meal that could feed families for days.
That turkey might not be all that big, but it can get sliced up and used for sandwiches and soups. Nobody should be hungry, especially in this nation.
In Milwaukee, Catherine Cook, KGW News.